And welcome and hello. Thank you for joining me. I'm Ramsey Bergeron with Bergeron Wellbeing, and welcome to Coach's Corner. And today we're talking about a subject that really means a lot to me because it's changed my life the last couple of years, and it is radical acceptance. And a lot of people don't even really know what radical acceptance means. So I'm going to start by saying keep an open mind. Because a lot of times the reason we need to practice radical acceptance is because we have an idea of how everything should be, even though it's not, and it causes us a lot of discomfort. So the first thing I'm going to say today is please keep an open mind. There's going to be some concepts I'm going to throw at you that might not sit well at first, but I'm going to advise you take some time, think about it, and then see if maybe there might be some truth there. So I'm going to start by telling you a story that kind of captures what I'm wanting to talk about today. So for over 20 years, I've hosted live events as an entertainer and an MC. And about 9 years ago, I had a big wedding that I was in charge of being the entertainment for. About 500 people at a big resort here in Scottsdale. And the bride went to go cut the wedding cake. And the venue didn't lock the legs of the table out all the way underneath the cake. Huge cake, like about 5 or 6 tier cake. And as she goes to cut the cake, the whole table collapses. The cake falls to the floor, cake everywhere. She's there with all of her friends and family that have known her whole life, and everyone just freezes and watches and looks at the bride. And then the bride starts dying laughing, and everyone in the room starts laughing, and it became a memorable part of the night. That could have gone one of two very different ways. I'm sure that those of you who have been married or those of you who are brides can kind of imagine what you would do in that situation. And I've seen weddings where brides maybe don't react with as much radical acceptance. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today is the things that happen to us. How do we react to those things? And if you have questions on this subject, please feel free to put them in the chat. There's going to be a lot that I'm going to try to get to in 10, 15 minutes today. And I'm going to try to answer your questions too. And I have something special at the end that I'm going to talk about that maybe you can help out even more. So what is radical acceptance? Let's start with that. Radical acceptance, when you stop fighting reality or responding with impulsive, destructive behaviors, when things aren't going the way you want, and let go of the things that keep you suffering needlessly. So that cake was going to fall either way. The cake fell. At that point, the bride realized what was there she could really do about it. But that doesn't stop a lot of us from being really angry in those situations and feeling like the universe has wronged us. This just isn't fair. Why does this happen to me? And we walk around holding on to anger, frustration, anxiety, because things aren't happening the way that we want them to happen. So that's kind of what I want to talk about, like why you might need radical acceptance. If you're angry, anxious, worried, feel the world isn't fair, feel it's out to get you. Because the world isn't out to get you. The world is rather indifferent. And the first point that I want to talk about in regards to what can help you with radical acceptance is non-judgment. A lot of times we get upset because we think things should be a certain way. And when they're not, then we're angry because we wanted them to be different than what they are. And a lot of that comes from we think this scenario will be good or that scenario will be bad. Based on what? Maybe what's happened in the past, but how many good things have happened to you in your life out of a bad scenario? You might not have met the love of your life because you got stood up and you went out dancing with your girls and then you met someone there. Let me go to, which kind of brings us to suffering. So suffering is when we think, we suffer when things are the way they are, not the way we want them to be. So it's just accepting that, well, I wanted to not hit any red lights on my way home from work today. Okay, I hit a red light. I can either hit a red light and be angry that I hit a red light or just accept the fact that I hit a red light. The light didn't see me coming and was like, oh, there's Ramsey. I'm going to turn red right now. We create so much unnecessary suffering because things aren't the way that we want them. There's a word for that. So the definition of this word is characterized by or holding beliefs or impressions that are contradicted by reality. It's called delusional. When we think things should be other than the way they are, or want things to be different than the way they are, and we're angry about it, it's delusional. We're not really operating in reality. Like when that cake fell, that bride just dealt with it. And a lot of times when we think things are good or bad, we're judging. We do it with other people. We do it with scenarios. We do it with events in our lives. How much of your time do you spend complaining because things aren't the way that you want them to be? Either an event isn't the way you want it to be, or someone's acting in a way other than how you want them to act. How much do you complain? And does that complaining change anything? Probably not. The people you're complaining about are those people. And even though you might find a characteristic negative, it's not. It simply is who they are. Good, supposedly good or bad. It makes us who we are. Think about how many times you complain throughout the day over little things. The air's too hot. It's a little too cold outside. Especially in Arizona. Today it's too cold. Tomorrow it's way too hot. When do you ever just accept that this is the temperature? This is where I'm at. We always find something to complain about. So the first step towards radical acceptance is non-judgment. Ask yourself, who would you be if there was nothing to complain about? If you didn't complain for a day, how different would your life be? And maybe try it. It's a lot harder than you think. There's a book called Think Like a Monk. Highly recommend it, written by a guy named Jay Shetty. And he recommends if you find yourself being critical of someone else or complaining in your mind about someone, write 10 things down about that person that's good. You may struggle at first, but the more you do that, the more you'll realize that most people have many more good attributes than bad, and your complaining serves absolutely no purpose other than putting you in a negative mindset. And if you're in a negative mindset, you begin to look at everything in your life through that filter. And that's where anger comes in. That's where anxiety comes in. That's where frustration or feeling like a victim. Life's just not fair. Why did that cake fall? No one knows why that cake fell. Well, then you didn't lock the table out, but you can't change anything about it at that point. Just like with life. Because we want things to be a certain way, and that boils down to control. So what are you really in control of in your life? The more you try to control, the more angry and resentful you feel, because you're really not in control of anything outside of your actions and what you do. That's your really only true possession, are your actions. So letting go of what you can't control is essentially the serenity prayer. For those of you who know the serenity prayer, it's giving me the strength to control the things I can and let go of the things that I cannot. And that brings you so much peace when you do that, because you're not burdening yourself with stuff you can't really have any effect over. Oh, I hope the plane's not going to be late, or I'm going to miss my connecting flight. Okay. If it is, it is. Worrying about it will not make the plane get there any faster. And I know that it feels like, yeah, well, that's all good and all, Ramsey. How can I really practice that? How can I work on that? I'll get to that. But I'm going to go back to this point. Who would you be if there's nothing to complain about? Because the ironic thing is, that's who you're meant to be. Because if you don't complain, that's your truest self, is you just living in total acceptance of what's going on around you, who the people are around you, and the situations that you're in. And it's so freeing. You're not burdened down by having to think that 1,000 things in the air are all your responsibility, because they're not. And the way that acceptance starts, again, we talked about, is non-judgment. When you think about non-judgment, again, we're just kind of recapping here. There's no good or bad. There simply is. The scenario is. Let's look at the coronavirus, for example. How many of your lives have been turned upside down for the past year? How many of you have grown because of that? You know, I know in the graphics on TV, the coronavirus is this evil-looking little microbe that they're showing there. But what have you done with your life because of how it's been impacted? So the scenario of the virus and what it's done to affect all of us, that scenario is. It simply is. How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to grow from that scenario? So non-judgment is the first aspect of Radical acceptance. Not looking at situations or people as good or bad. They simply are. The second part is impermanence. Life is impermanent. That means everything changes all the time. And we start to get upset because things aren't the way that they used to be. We want them to be this way because, well, why? It's always been that way. And when they start to change, we get angry. Think of, in a simple level, if a parent has their child and like, oh, I don't want you to ever grow up. I want you to always stay this small. And they're joking, but for the most part, it's like, no, this is so great. They want this to be here. We don't accept that a part of life is that growth. Or the house you live in will eventually be nothing. It'll, everything that we have, we think is here forever. It's not. And part of this impermanence is realizing we don't really own anything. Like you may say, I own my house. Okay. According maybe to the government or the state, but it could still burn down. You don't own that. You don't own that thing. You just own your actions. And realizing you truly don't own anything is also liberating and freeing. It's part of a minimalist type mentality almost, where if everything in your life you look at the same way you look at a rental car or an Airbnb, you're going to be much better off. You appreciate it while you have it. You take good care of it while it's there. It's not always going to be there. And when you think about everything, whether it's a parent, a pet, your job, your spouse, all of it is impermanent. Even you. So when we have this great fear of death, there's something in Buddhism called the 5 Remembrances. And it's kind of 5 mantras to think about every day that kind of keeps things in perspective, because we all go through every day in life thinking, I'm immortal. Nothing's going to happen to me. Things will always be this way. People will always be here. These are the 5 remembrances of Buddhism that have really changed my life and the way that I look at things. And again, have an open mind and see how this may resonate with you. Or if it doesn't resonate with you, why are you resistant to it? Might be another good question. The first one, I'm of the nature to grow old. There is no way to escape growing old. It's just a fact. I'm of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape ill health. For me, this one really hit home. A couple of years ago, I herniated 3 discs in my back, and I had 2 races coming up over the course of the next year. I was so angry because I did it running downhill. I was feeling great, and I knew I shouldn't have done it, and I did it, and I was so angry at myself. And I'm like, God, why are you so stupid? Why could this happen? This is so unfair. I have these races. Now I can't do them. I was angry. I was miserable. I was taking it out on other people. I was taking it out on my wife. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to live that way. Either way, I was going to be hurt. I could either accept, you know what? I'm hurt. But being hurt and angry is a terrible way to go through life. So this is a great one for me to keep in mind as well. I'm of the nature to have ill health. There is no way to escape ill health. That doesn't mean that I have to be sad about it. There's a difference between being sad and acceptance. I just have to accept the reality that I have ill health. I have clients sometimes who want to be back when they were 20 years old. Like, well, I could run a 6-minute mile when I was 20. All right, you're 68. We have to accept that. I'm not saying that we can't make you stronger, but we have to also accept the fact that we age and we have ill health. The third of these is also a hard one to wrap our heads around. I'm of the nature to die. There's no way to escape death. And for me, this was an important one because my ego used to be the strongest thing about me. I used to joke around that we'd need to get a larger door to my man cave because I thought that I was God's gift on earth, that I had a couple of faults, but I was better than I deserved to be. And once I realized that I'm the nature of death, there's no way to escape death, that really humbled me and made me realize that, again, it helped me to practice non-judgment because I'm not immortal. I am just the same as everyone else. I'm no better, no worse. I'm simply me. And that really helped keep things in perspective for me and helped me live every day knowing that if it's my last, I want it to have been a good day. I want to live by certain principles every day. And this remembrance kind of helps me with that. 4 is also just as challenging to kind of think about, but it's so true. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are of the nature to change. There is no way to escape being separated from them. That's really kind of says it all. We all think that everyone that we love and that's close to us are in our lives all the time, and we don't appreciate them. We're too busy with our heads buried in our phone to look at our spouse across the room. We don't think about our aging parents or grandparents. Aren't going to be there because we take it for granted. Well, they're there. Well, one day they won't be. And by thinking of these remembrances, it helps us keep that in mind. And we're much more mindful of the time that we do have with them. And it also helps us accept when they're not there anymore as well, because that is the nature of everything. And 5 is one I've kind of hinted on already as well. My actions are my only true belongings. I cannot escape the consequences of my actions. My actions are the ground upon which I stand. This also keeps in perspective of what am I really in control over? What do I really have? What do I really own? And again, this may seem so trivial, but just to put it in perspective, I took an adventure trip to New Zealand a couple of years ago, and I had a new drone. I was so excited about this drone. I wanted to get some footage of me flying it around. I couldn't wait to make this video of the trip. My first day there, I smashed it into a tree and it broke. And I was pretty upset about it. For about 15 minutes, I remember cursing and I was not happy. And then at that point, it's like, okay, I can yell at this thing, at this situation at the top of my lungs. What's it going to change? It's not going to change anything. It's still going to be broken. And I'm just going to be angry and have it broken. I don't own that drone. It's plastic. It's trivial. The only thing I own are my actions. How am I going to react to this situation? That's really all that I own. So the two major things to take away is this impermanence, which is kind of what these 5 remembrances are. Oh, I have a comment. Let's see here. Could be good, could be bad. We don't know. Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, looking for the blessing in every situation. Thank you. So I want to share, I guess, with the 5 remembrances. Here's a little thing for you. I have them all written out here. I'm also going to have this on my website, but these is just kind of a list of the 5 remembrances. I'm the nature to grow old. There's no way to escape growing old. The nature to have ill health. No way to escape ill health. I'm of the nature to die. There's no way to escape death. All that is dear to me and everyone I love are the nature to change. There's no way to escape being separated from them. My actions are my only true belongings. There is so much more in regards to radical acceptance. Thinking back to that bride and that cake is so much more than just a cake. That cake is you getting fired from your job. That cake is you getting a divorce. That cake is your cancer diagnosis. Everything that happens to us in life, we may feel this isn't fair. We take it personally and we get angry and we get frustrated and we lash out at those around us. And that's what causes suffering. So there's a misconception that Buddhism thinks that suffering is the life is suffering. It's not. What causes suffering is craving. And you're craving for something that's not. You're craving for something that's not there, craving for a state of health that you don't have, craving for a state of finances that you don't have, craving for a state of relationship that you don't have. That's what's causing suffering. We're always going to have pain. Pain is inevitable. It's up to you if you want to suffer. And that's where radical acceptance comes in. So I have only just barely scratched the surface on how to truly practice radical acceptance. And while working on this, I decided that I wanted to really help people find radical acceptance. So I'm starting a workshop, a radical acceptance workshop. It's going to be Tuesday nights in May, starting on May 4th. So for our Star Wars fans out there, may the 4th be with you. Every Tuesday night, 6 to 7 p.m. on Zoom, it's going to be a radical acceptance workshop to help you maybe get through some of that anger, to help you maybe let go of having to feel like you have to control everything and accept scenarios the way they are. It's going to be very limited, only 6 to 8 people, just so that we can really take time and explore how we feel about things and look for ways to look at things in a different light. So if you have found anything useful today, I really would appreciate if you maybe share this video with someone else, subscribe or like it. Tune back in next week. Hopefully I'll have some more information for you that you can benefit from. And thanks for being here. Now, if I can only find a way to exit, I think I got it here. Thanks again. Have a great day.